emotional arc of losing your son. What was the worst time?
The worst time had to be when I had to wash his body. You know what I mean? That was the worst, but it was also the best.
The system failed. The streets didn't. Nobody's going to prison for this. Not the trigger man. He's dead. Not the driver, still walking free. Not the ones who planned it, never charged. Not a single person who was on that block the night. Gillie Da Kid's son got shot in the back. 0 arrests, 0 indictments, 0 accountability. Devin Spady, YNG Cheese, 25 years old, shot once in the back on July 20th, 2023 in Philadelphia. He wasn't even the target. He pulled up to a block that wasn't his, stood there for maybe 5 minutes, and came home in a casket. And 2 years later, the Philadelphia Police Department's official position is that they have no evidence definitively tying anyone to this murder. That's not justice. That's not even close. That's a system telling a father, your son's life wasn't enough to solve. Who is Gillie Da Kid, and why this hits different? Nasir Farad, born January 1st, 1984, North Philadelphia. Gillie didn't just make it out. He made it twice. First as a rapper. Founding member of Major Fegus, signed to Cash Money Records, left that deal in 2006 after it went sideways, and then publicly accused Lil Wayne of using his ghost-written bars on The Carter. Wayne denied it. Cash Money denied it. Gillie said, it anyway because that's who he is. A man who doesn't bend the truth to protect powerful people. Then he built again. $1 million worth of game alongside his cousin, Wallow 267. A man who did 20 years in prison and came home with nothing but wisdom. Together, they built one of the most respected voices in hip-hop culture. Real talk, real stories, real consequences. No fluff. And through all of that, Gillie was watching his son Devin try to find his own lane. YNG Cheese was rapping, moving, building, 25 years old with his whole life ahead of him. But Gillie has been open about the fact that their relationship had friction. Cheese was leaning toward street life. And Gillie, a man who knew exactly what that life costs, was desperately trying to pull him back. He said it himself on Club Shay Shay. I was struggling with my son trying to get him off the streets. We didn't have the best relationship. When he passed because he wanted to be a street nin. And I didn't believe in that. That is a man carrying guilt that doesn't lift. The weight of knowing you were fighting to save your son's life and still losing him. That is the man who had to answer a phone call from the Philadelphia Police Department telling him his son's alleged killer had just been murdered. Not arrested, murdered. The night. Everything ended Thursday night, July 20th, 2023, just before 8:30 p.m. The 5800 block of Masher Street in Olney, a neighborhood where regular life and street life intersect in ways that don't make the news until somebody gets hurt. YNG Cheese pulled up to a block he had zero ties to. No beef there. No history there. Gillie confirmed this himself. His son wasn't from that area, wasn't connected to whatever was going down that night. He just pulled up out there for maybe 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And that's all it took. Multiple gunmen opened fire on the A block. Cheese caught a bullet in the back. 1 shot. He was rushed to Einstein Medical Center and pronounced dead within minutes of arriving. 2 other men were struck that night. A 28-year-old shot twice in the leg, a 31-year-old shot once in the hip. Both survived. Cheese didn't. His father had been posting about him on social media the day before. Proud father energy, regular day. 24 hours later, everything stopped. Philadelphia PD responded to the scene. No weapons recovered, no arrests made, no immediate suspects, and that's where this case sat, open, cold, and bleeding, for over a year and a half. Over 500 people were killed in Philadelphia in 2023 alone. The city was drowning in homicides, and in the chaos of all that bloodshed, the murder of one of hip-hop's most beloved figure's sons went unsolved. No arrests, no charges, nothing. The Kid. They almost arrested. Here's where this story stops being just another Philly homicide and becomes something that should make every single person uncomfortable. Noah Scurry, 16 years old in the summer of 2023, junior at Samuel Fells High School in Feltonville, Philadelphia, straight A student, highest SAT score in his entire school. Division I basketball programs were watching him. On paper, a kid, with every single reason to make it out. But underneath all of that, Noah Scurry was living a completely different life at night under the name Joker OTV, making drill music, posting videos with a Joker mask on his face and guns in his hands. Gillie pointed to this publicly. He got videos with a Joker mask on, bunch of guns in his hand. This is the same kid who was supposedly getting Division I looks. Double Life doesn't even begin to cover it, and it gets darker. In May 2023, just 2 months before Cheese was killed, Scurry was present at a shooting on the 4600 block of Mulberry Street, where a man in his 60s was murdered. Scurry survived that one. The streets were already moving around him in ways that should have been a wake-up call for everyone. Police started tying threads together. Investigators were building a case. They were close, real close, to arresting Noah Scurry for the murder of YNG Cheese. The case was nearly ready to move. Then January 13th, 2025 happened. Scurry dropped his first official solo music video, Swing My Door, under the Joker OTV name. Joker mask, aggressive energy, full street content. The video would rack up over 2.6 million views. He dropped that on January 13th. The very next morning, January 14th, 2025, around 7 a.m., Noah Scurry walked out of his home with his mother to be dropped off at school. A white Jeep Cherokee pulled into the alleyway behind his house. At DE, at least 20 shots fired. At least 2 shooters stepped out of that vehicle with a possible third behind the wheel. 17 of those 20 shots hit Noah Scurry. He died in that driveway. In front of his mother, 17 years old, shot 17 times. Don't let that number wash over you. Sit with it. No arrests were made in Scurry's murder either. Police called it targeted, meaning whoever did this knew exactly where he lived and exactly when he'd be outside. The streets knew something the police were still piecing together. The phone call. No father should ever get Gillie found out about his son's alleged killer the same way he found out about too many things in this case, through a phone call from Philadelphia PD. Not, "We arrested the man who shot your son." Not, "We're ready to go to trial." But, "The person we were about to charge for your son's murder? He just got killed." That is what the system delivered to Gillie Da Kid after nearly 2 years of waiting. Club Shay Shay. The moment that broke the internet, February 12th, 2025. Gillie sits down with Shannon Sharpe on Club Shay Shay. The Eagles just won Super Bowl 59. Gillie had been running out of the tunnel with the team like the North Philly legend. He is. The conversation was supposed to be celebratory. Shannon Sharpe brought up Noah Scurry as part of a broader conversation about gun violence and how young athletes used to be protected by their communities. Sharpe had no idea what was about to come out of Gillie's mouth. Sharpe asked directly, "Have you talked to the kid that took your son's life?" Gillie's response dropped the room to silence. "Nah, I never met him. Only reason I knew is because the police called me and told me once he was murdered. The kid had just got shot 17 times. He was walking with his mom and he got murdered. And then the police notified me and let me know that he was one of the kids that was pretty much about to get locked up for the murder, but he got murdered first." Dead air. Shannon Sharpe just sat there. Then later in the same conversation, not realizing he'd already made the connection, Sharpe brought Scurry up again while discussing gun violence, and Gillie looked at him and said, "That's who killed my son." That silence that followed is one of the most uncomfortable moments in podcast history. Not because it was dramatic, because it was devastatingly quietly real. A father. Calm. Naming the person who took his child's life. A person who will never see a courtroom, never sit at a defense table, never face him from across a room. The system's response and why it matters. The very next day, Philadelphia Deputy Police Commissioner Frank Venor went public. His statement was direct. Through evidence, I don't have anyone connected definitively that is responsible for this homicide. Read that carefully. Gillie says police called him and told him Scurry was the suspect they were about to arrest. The PPD publicly says they have no definitive evidence connecting anyone to the murder. Both of those things cannot fully be true. At the same time, either the police told Gillie something they shouldn't have, or they are now distancing themselves from a case that went cold because their primary suspect got murdered before they could move on him. Either way, Cheese's mother Tara found out about a possible suspect not from law enforcement, not from a detective knocking on her door, but from watching a podcast. That is what this system delivered to this family. Scurry's cousin Brianna McGlynn came out swinging. Have they provided proof? Because his son died more than a year ago. They're literally dragging my family through the mud. She questioned whether Gillie was using her cousin's name to stay relevant and demanded people let her family mourn. You can feel both sides of that. Gillie got a phone call from law enforcement. He is not making things up out of thin air. He is not a man who needs to invent a story. He built an entire career on not softening the truth. At the same time, Scurry's cousin is defending a 17-year-old who cannot speak for himself. 2 grieving families. 0 arrests, 0 answers on either side. The ones who actually got away. This is the part nobody wants to say out loud, so I will. Even if Noah, Scurry pulled the trigger that night on Masher Street, he did not do it alone. Somebody drove, somebody planned it, somebody handed someone a weapon, somebody knew that block was getting shot up that night and made sure they were positioned right. Every single one of those people is free right now, living, moving, breathing in Philadelphia. And with Scurry gone, the primary suspect buried, the case on Cheese's murder is functionally a dead end. The people who were there that night are going to walk away from this without ever sitting in a courtroom. Gillie's nephew, according to reports, was investigated in connection with Scurry's death. A cryptic message appeared on Instagram shortly after Scurry's killing that read, "The body ain't worth it if the streets don't know you did it. Make of that what you will. What is clear is this. If Noah Scurry was responsible for Cheese's death, street justice moved faster than legal justice by a country mile. The system had nearly 2 years to make an arrest and couldn't bring the case to a courtroom before the streets settled it themselves. What this actually is. Gillie said it, with real pain. These kids actually think that you can't make it as a rapper unless you killed somebody. He wasn't being preachy, he was testifying. He came up in North Philly, he went toe-to-toe with Cash Money Records, he built a multi-million-dollar media empire from scratch. And he is telling you straight, the myth these kids are chasing is a lie that costs real lives. Noah Scurry had a 4.0, the highest SAT score in his school, and Division I scouts watching him play. He had everything, a complete way out, and he still ended up in a lane that took all of it away before he ever turned 18. Cheese wasn't even his target. He just pulled up to the wrong block for 5 minutes and got caught in somebody else's war. 2 young men dead. Neither needed to be. The real verdict. The gap between what the streets know and what the courts can prove. That is exactly where killers live comfortably. Philadelphia had over 500 homicides in 2023 alone. The clearance rate on murder cases tells a brutal story. The city would rather not tell. When communities don't trust the system, witnesses don't come forward. When witnesses don't come forward, cases go cold. When cases go cold, the streets handle it. And when the streets handle it, another mother watches her child die in a driveway. The cycle feeds itself, and it does not break on its own. Gillie bought a Times Square billboard on the 1-year anniversary of his son's death. He runs out of Eagles tunnels draped in green. He speaks on $1 million worth of game every week to young men standing at the exact same crossroads his son stood at. He called Scurry's death divine justice. His words, "He had to deal with God. That's how I look at it." That's a man who made peace with something a courtroom never gave him. Cheese's mother said when everything came out through a podcast, "I can't even really say. I don't really know how to feel about this." That's not closure. That's grief with a different name. One man dead at 25. One kid dead at 17. 0 people in handcuffs. A father describing what it felt like to wash his own son's body before they put him in the ground. No charges, no trial, no verdict. Just grief stacked on top of grief stacked, on top of more grief. That's what justice looks like in America when the system decides a case is too complicated to close. Drop a comment. Tell me if Philly failed this family, or if the system was always designed to produce exactly this outcome. And make sure you're here for the next one, because we're just getting started pulling these threads.